Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for getting out here on this cold morning. So we're Sunday. It's a little chilly out, but it was super hot in here, so I opened the door. So hopefully everyone's comfortable. Hopefully you all have something to drink. I have a great panel of friends. Like, these folks have become friends of mine, and so I invited them to come and share some of their wisdom with us. They all kind of come at it with a different little twist for PR and getting in print. And the first person I want to introduce is my good friend Amy Flurry, who has a book. Hold that book up.
Okay. Recipe for Press.
Yeah. Do you want to just give your 30-second commercial?
Yep. 20 years in editorial on the other side of the table. And when I transitioned out of editorial, I said, here's what every editor everywhere would like to tell you that's not going to tell you about how to pitch your project, how to pitch yourself. And now I'm a communications partner to a number of industry brands and hang out with friends like Nick.
Yeah. So if you've been around market, you know that Amy does a lot of panels as well. I just asked her to kind of be my sidekick and help us out, help guide the conversation today. She has lots of wisdom. I would say stick around afterwards and you can pick anybody's brain for at least 30 seconds and then let them go on to their day. But we have a great panel, and so I have a couple of things we're going to go down the line. We're going to start with Courtney. I want you to share your name, your company, your years in business. You ready? Your biggest win in PR. And or. We'll go or. You can either go your biggest win or your biggest fail. Okay?
Ready? Oh, I'm Courtney Pisarik, co-founder of Inc. PR. I have had my business for 15 years. We've been focused exclusively in the design and architecture industry for the last 4 to 5 years, I think. It was the best choice I ever made to actually focus and really learn an industry and make a lot of friends and also a lot of great relationships. Biggest win? I mean, I have so many wins working for myself. But I also seem to have a niche. I've had a couple of clients that have ended up on major television shows. So I think it's a win in that I had an entertainment history. Originally, my business, the first 10 years, we did a lot in the entertainment industry. And that industry wasn't for me, but I still do maintain a lot of those relationships, which has given me that opportunity to make that happen for us. So, yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, there you go. My name is Bria Hammel. I'm the principal designer of Bria Hammel Interiors and founder of the e-commerce business Brook & Lou that we launched last year, and co-founder of Hammel House & Co. that I'm not going to talk much about today. I have been in business with Bria Hammel Interiors for 7 years, and Brook & Lou, like I said, we just hit our 1-year anniversary. Biggest win in PR, I think that's a little bit of a difficult question because press, there's all different angles of press, and there's great things about being in print. There's also great things about being in digital and getting digital PR. So I'd say for print, probably our feature in Traditional Home. It was a project we designed in Baltimore, Maryland, and that project, we call it The Gift That Just Keeps On Giving. We just won second place internationally for the Sub-Zero Wolf contest on that same kitchen. But I think the biggest thing about that was Traditional Home picked it up and they did not reshoot it. They used our images, which is always a really big honor that they think our images are quality enough to put in a magazine. So that's probably mine.
Good morning. You guys look so good. I'm Damen Jenkins. I am the principal and founder of Damen Jenkins and Associates. We are based in New York City as well as Detroit, and been doing interior design as far as the actual field for 23 years. I got started back in 1996. Next year, 2020, will mark the 10th year anniversary of my firm as far as me running my own enterprise and business. As far as press and big wins, I can just simply say we've been very richly blessed with a lot of press, and I'm very grateful for the fact that these magazines, especially the print magazines, can support designers from across the country. Even though I live in New York part-time, just seeing them give us focus in the Midwest. There is money and great clients and great projects in the middle of the country, which is where I hail from. So seeing magazines like Traditional Home and House Beautiful and AD, HGTV and others giving so much love to our clientele in their homes and press in Michigan and Toronto and other parts of our country and, of course, Canada in that area has been a real win for me.
Good morning. My name is Darla Powell. I am the principal and founder of Darla Powell Interiors in Miami, Florida for a whole hot 2.5 years. And I am the host of the Wingnut Social Podcast, which is an interior design business podcast for a whole hot 1 year. My biggest win so far in PR, I would have to say, would be from the podcast side for sure, because let's face it, I haven't been doing interior design for a whole hell of a lot of time. But the podcast itself has been featured in Designers Today. Thank you, Jane Dagme, very much. Sir. AD Pro, Business of Home, and Aspire Design and Home. So in just 1 short year. So I'd say that through our social media marketing is our biggest win. I really haven't had a failure yet, but give me time.
Nobody really mentioned the fails.
Yeah, I know. No one picked up on that one.
Conveniently.
I don't know. They all had just wins, right? So, well, we have to throw out a question for Amy really quick just to get things started. So, thinking about DIY press and PR, what is 1 to 2 things that every designer should be doing, but they're really not?
Okay. It's pretty easy for me. Is understanding that there is a lot that you can do before you may need a publicist. And as a former editor, that's what I began to recognize, is that you felt like you could not approach me because you didn't have a publicist. And that's just simply not the case. However, no. Now I'm getting to the value of a publicist, because a publicist also is not going to take you if you're not prepared to put yourself out there. There's just a lot of work that you can do to get the attention of a good publicist, but there's a lot that you can do for yourself that still can land you on the pages, and probably some of you on the panel and some of you in the audience I know have taken that advice and just understood, like, oh, there's a person on the other side of that table. And if you kind of flip that perspective and you think and ask yourself, or, with your bestie, say, does this look like it belongs honestly in the pages of this magazine? Step 1, and begin to understand the process of how editors make decisions. It's just a nice, I'm not sure if that was really the answer, but I think that's just understanding that there is so much that you can do to position yourself, for a good consideration.
Yeah. I would just add to that, making sure you have good digitals. Bria just mentioned that she had a project and they ended up using the digitals that they created. They didn't have to go out. She made it easy for them. So those are kind of the basic steps.
Well, I do want to say, when you and I met, remember the first thing we had a conversation?
You always
I said,
have to bring this up.
Do you have a good portrait of yourself? And you showed me, and I was like, that's not going to do. I said, do you have a good editorial portrait of yourself? And we kept working on it until.
And literally before I left High Point, I had
Correct. You're a quick learner.
Massive action is always my thing. Courtney, we're going to jump over to you. So if you can hand the microphone. Sorry, we only have one microphone for them. When is a designer ready to hire a PR person?
I think that's different for everybody, but what she said is you need to be ready. You need to have an established line of work. You need to have projects that have been ideally professionally photographed, or at least photographed well. And you need to be ready to tell your story. Your social, it's different. Some clients come completely buttoned up and they're ready to go, and they'll have several projects that are ready for us just to try to drop into magazine and digital opportunities. But other clients will actually retain us a few months early to help to finish up, and update their bios, make suggestions for photography, help them actually shoot the projects that they would like to have published. And yeah, so I think that's, if you're ready to go, someone like Corey, who has a publicist, but if, he's ready, he understands his aesthetic to the public is beautiful and he's ready. But a lot of people, we had a woman come to us recently and we actually started working with her. She'll remain nameless, but she actually had some stock photos on her website. And we didn't realize until we actually did like a back search, but this is why she came to us early. So fortunately, we hadn't pushed her nationally to any opportunities. So
Absolutely.
We went through a couple PR people before we found the right one. And my big learning lesson was that the first two that we went to, I never went with an end goal to them. So I never could tell them exactly why I was hiring them, besides that we wanted press. Well, why do you want press? I mean, I think there needs to be a why for that. And then when I finally had to reflect and be like, why do I keep failing with these PR? Maybe it's not for me. That's not what really our business model is to have that kind of press. Once I finally realized what my end goal was, then when we hired the right person, it made it easier for her because she had focus and direction, because it's only getting our projects in press is only a piece of what press is for us, like designer tips and all these magazines. Like, we're in a national publication every single month between our two brands now. And that is because it's not all about just our projects being in there. I want to be able to, if they want to ask what a trend is for the upcoming season, I want to be the person they're asking. It's about brand recognition, especially with our e-commerce line now, is we just want people to know who we are and watch what we're doing. So when I was able to give her more direction, then she just took off running, and it's been so successful now.
So how did you answer that when you were able to? So when you at first you didn't have an answer to it, and then how did you answer?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is that I didn't know I needed an answer to that, and shame on them for not asking. But I found the right person, and she asked me, and I was like, okay, what is it? And like I said, my goal was just to have brand recognition. To kind of be considered a leader in just, up and coming trends and styles. And our big goal was to have not only BHI recognized as a leading designer, but Brooke and Lou, because we can spread our wings and reach so many more people through our e-commerce business than our select group of potential clients. So when I was able to tell her, we just want people to know who Brooke and Lou is. We want the trade to know who they are, because we serve a lot of trade members. We want potential clients to know. We want the kids to tell their moms to go buy Brooke and Lou. So once we had that, then she was able to give direction to it.
I think to that point, talking about this for so long, I've had to think, how do you express that, like, concisely? But I think I'm tagging onto what you're saying. Press is about where you want to go, not what you've done. And once you kind of internalize that and you understand the purpose, which is exactly what you're saying, then you're giving an expert the direction. They can give you a roadmap to that ultimate, place you want to go. But when you can't tell them, it's really hard to contain, and doesn't, it's kind of windy instead of like getting there directly.
Hand it down to Darla. Darla, how does social media, like everyone's talking about social media, there's lots of panels about social media here this week. How does social media act as PR, and how does it not?
That's an excellent question. So social media is your homegrown based PR, especially if you're doing it for yourself. Social media is, I don't want to say real time, I guess it depends on when you're posting, but it is the day to day for your clients, for potential vendors, for magazines to see you and discover you and to see, is this someone with an aesthetic that has a fit with our brand or with our agency or in our magazine or on our podcast or a panel even, to get you discovered. And when you're on social media, you are actually your own, without kind of being, tooting your own horn too much, your own cheerleader, and showing the world, this is what I have to offer, this is my personality, this is what you see is what you get. And, when I was thinking about this question, I was like, how is it not PR? I don't think that's not applicable. It's PR to a T, 100% in some
PR
way.
looks funny these days.
Yeah.
To piggyback on what Darla said, though, there is a caveat that we have to keep in mind when you are posting your work on social media. Print magazines continue to retain a huge amount of respect with the American public and the American constituency of readership. If you post your project on your social media platform, say a dining room or a living room space, there's a very high chance that the magazines will not publish your project. They want first right of refusal, and they want exclusive rights to publish your work so that they can say that we revealed this to the readership. Now, that means you have to be extremely patient to wait for them to come around to publish it. If you do get it accepted, you have to wait a while for the magazine to probably run it in a future magazine issue, which means it may kill you not to put it on social media. But what you can do is you can do a vignette shot. Maybe it's a tabletop setting or a nook with a chair with a lamp in the corner where you're not exposing and revealing the entire room, just an element. And if you really want to get smart and sophisticated with it, restrict that image to your Instagram stories versus making a feed post with it. Once it's on your feed, it lives forever. If the editor comes back and if they feel that you reveal too much, you're kind of, screwed. But if you keep it on Instagram stories, it's just 24 hours of exposure and it just goes away like a mist in the Sahara Desert.
And you're desperate to show that whole room image. Don't do it, because they will consider that published, exactly what you're saying.
Could you do like before shots or during shots, like little things like, we're gonna tear this room apart, you're not gonna believe how is that good?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I can do that. Yeah, absolutely. And as far as social media goes, your viewers love to see that. They want to see the process. If you're talking from, my followers on social media, and editors, they like to see that too. They like to see, what is this person doing? What is this person up to? HGTV is actually looking through feeds. If you tag HGTV, I'm telling you, Abby McCullum was on the podcast.
Right there, everybody. HGTV, just saying.
Yeah, Abby McCullum, she is in charge of social media for HGTV. She was on the podcast. She actually personally goes through and looks, HGTV, let me see if this person is somebody that could be on our network. So yeah, it's absolutely very effective. And they want to see how you are on camera, go through how you walk someone through a space. Absolutely.
Courtney and I were talking earlier about the power of print, and when you're looking at projects and that takes so long to get published, longer than any other thing, you will wait on a project to get published, and you really have to decide, is that what I want? Or, do I want to make the choice to publish it? But the power of print still resonates widely, and why don't you speak to that? Just how do you keep your clients from, how do you help them have the patience to wait, and how do you navigate that with them, especially when it comes to a project?
I think it really depends on the client, and it also depends on the project. If we're speaking specifically to that, like we'll have clients that come to us and say, this house, this is perfect for Architectural Digest, and then they'll send us the photos, and we're like, have you looked at Architectural Digest recently? Like, does it, right? like who is the homeowner? What is their story? What does the home look like? Was it styled properly? Like, there's so many components that go into that. The whole digital print debate is alive and well. I think print is still boss, although it does take a very long time. I shared with her, we had a client recently that spent 5 figures, well into the 5 figures, to shoot a beautiful house. And finally, after 6 months of deliberation, was picked up by a major national magazine. And ultimately, the magazine reshot it. And the client was so frustrated because they had these beautiful photos. But I feel in the long run, it's wonderful when they use the work that you've shared, but it's also wonderful when they're going to spend their time and money to shoot it. It means they're really investing. And then we'll ultimately we'll use those other photos for something else later, and maybe digital. But as far as digital to print, I think, like I said, it's still the debate, because if you can wait, if you can tide yourself over, like Corey said, and not put anything on social, or be very strategic about how you do share a project, ultimately print, not only do you get that print credibility and you reach that demographic that's still looking into those print pages, but you also get the digital and the social support once the print piece runs. So you get more, and it is more powerful. But we are getting a little frustrated, and I think the digital teams are really upping their game as far as what they're offering. And we do have certain cases where, like if Architectural Digest wants to do an exclusive web tour, just go for it. A lot of times it just depends.
And you do want to time things in a way that if you are getting published in print or even online, like AD may do an article about you online, if you're doing before and after photos, you may want to wait.
Good ones. Get good ones. Don't be like bad lighting. I hate it when you used to have these befores, but they were like, I don't know, they've taken like with a Polaroid or something. Like, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's like, no, take it good. Like, get some good lighting, like, so we can actually see more of the detail. You want to see how bad it really is, right?
Or even just the construction process. But then maybe you might want to save those images, those before shots, until you're closer to the actual release of the article, because readers do pay attention and they get very frustrated. My followers get very upset if I've teased them with all these befores and they're like, okay, show me the finished product, and there's like a 7-month gap.
They'll be out in 2021, just wait.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So you may want to just say, okay, we're going to catalog these befores, and then when we know the editor said we're going to run the story in March or whatever, maybe in the last few weeks of February, you start posting those befores, and it builds like a narrative that seems more recent, and you segue right into the finished product.
Yeah. Bria, I want to jump over to you. So big picture, what's your philosophy? Like, what's the overarching philosophy for you on PR? How do you use it in your business, and how do you kind of combine the print side and the digital side?
Well, I think just piggyback on what I was saying before, philosophy-wise, I think once I decided what I wanted PR to be for, it's multifaceted. Part of it is brand exposure to gain new clients, to gain our ideal clients. So how do we pitch ourselves, and where do we want to be to get those ideal clients? There is, every magazine kind of has their readership, and knowing what that is and who's reading those magazines, we look at that. When we have a project, we say, what magazine do we think this would actually be a good fit for, and what readers do we want to see this project? So we think about that a lot. We have a weekly press meeting with our PR agent. We have someone local, which is amazing that we have someone so talented in our area. She comes to my office every single week and meets both with the BHI team and the Brook and Lou team. So we're really engaged, and it's a very big part of our business. There's a difference between digital and print, like we were saying, but digital for us too, we get way more. Obviously, we can track how many hits we get to our website. We can see the traffic. We're surprised by what websites and magazines and online digital magazines actually give us the most traffic. We were surprised by thinking that some of the really big brands are the ones that drove traffic.
What did you find?
Well,
A surprising find.
so I would just say, versus some of the major national print publications that we've been featured in and online, one of the ones that always shocks us is Style Me Pretty, which is a blog, basically. We always get triple the amount of traffic pushed to our website, and they go right to our portfolio.
That means they have a more engaged audience on that blog.
They do, and they read it. I mean, they must get email notifications. I don't know what it is, but we're always shocked by that because, Style Me Pretty is very supportive of us. It's rare that if we send them a project, they say no. But it's been amazing for traffic, so, and I would say the people that read Style Me Pretty are probably more of our Brook and Lou client than our BHI client, which is fine. So we know the projects that we send to them, we want to make sure that it's something that we want our Brook and Lou audience to see, versus, some of the major publications, like the one that was in Traditional Home, that was a very special project where it took a lot of hard creative design work, and we worked on it for a long time. It was a very unique type of project for the Baltimore downtown area. So it was important for us to share that story with people to show what kind of problem solvers we are and the elevated type of space we could do in a city that doesn't have a lot of that in the heart of the downtown. So just really that's, to get back to your question,
Yeah.
Our press and PR is all about just really using it to accomplish a goal.
Yeah. So two things, I just want to piggyback on what you just said. So two things. One, you have to really understand, and I think this was said earlier, you really have to understand the publications that you are pitching to. Understand their readership. Is this a really good fit? Really know. So if you're not really going after for the A&D client, then you shouldn't be pitching there. But then also really understand that some of these smaller publications like a blog or a podcast, right?
Yes, that's what I was going to.
It's more emotional. Like
Right.
people are really engaged. Like I can't tell you how many people that I have literally run into that are like, "Oh my gosh, it's Nick." Like, and they're asking me personal questions. Like they're engaged. Like, and so you want to be a part of a publication or a blog or a podcast. That's the way that they're engaging with that content. And so you're going to get way more business if you're on those.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Press looks it's a much more broad net that you cast. It's not just print, it's not just blog, and it's online publications. If you have an Instagram, you are an editor of your own, feed. But at High Point, I cannot tell you the number of people that have said, "Well, I just re-listened to your conversation with Nick." So podcasts are super powerful. And in the same way, we've had so many conversations about pitching podcasts. How do you have to consider that press and another opportunity. And not only that, like the amount that we learn from them, you have 30 minutes to talk about, with an engaged audience, to talk about yourself, your brand, to have a conversation. And people really have, I guess, connected with that as powerfully as any of these other mediums. So you get pitched a lot.
I do.
What's the biggest no-no in pitching you? For starters, that's the question everyone wants to know, right?
For
Well, how do
starters,
you you pitch you? And
when it's obvious that they've actually never listened to my podcast, I will get these emails and they say, "Nick, I have this perfect person that your audience would just love," and then they go off on something about, design specific. Well, if you've listened to my podcast, I don't talk design specific.
Hey, Nick, I think I'm a great fit for your podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the line.
Yeah, it is, and you immediately, I know.
You never listen to the podcast, and you know it like within 2 seconds. Right?
But when in the first couple seconds they talk about, "Hey, I was listening to your interview with Amy Flurry, or Damen Jenkins," then they go off on something else that they're really. "Hey, if you ever want to do a story on us, we would love." So it's got to be a little bit softer. I want to run down to Darla. Darla, give us 3 tips to help us do social media better. So low-hanging fruit, what do we need to do?
Maybe just do it. A lot of designers, the biggest pushback I get from interior designers at Wingnut Social is that they'll try to do social media for a week or 2 or a month or maybe even 2 months if they're like really in it. And they're like, I didn't get any ROI from it, so it just didn't work for me. And it's really kind of a long play. It takes a while to build up that engaged following and those super fans, so just do it. And another huge thing I see is I cannot tell you how many clients come to us at Wingnut Social, interior designers who want to be influencers, who want to be world dominators, or even just want to get local ROI in their markets, who I have no idea what they look like from looking at their feed. So your personality and what you project out there on social is crazy important, especially if you want local ROI, because the clients that are going to hire you want to know who you are. But even more so, like when Abby McCullum is looking through for HGTV, she wants to see your mug. She was saying at the Design Influencers Conference, which I attended, she spoke at, that she could not believe as well how many people aren't putting video on their feeds, or how many people aren't putting photos of themselves on their feeds and showing their personality. And the third one, I would say, is just be you. Just be authentic. Don't try to be trendy for the sake of being trendy, or do something that you think you have to because you're supposed to, because then you're really not going to appeal to anybody. It's better just to be yourself and to find that niche of those super fans. And those would be my top 3.
Nice. Love
Thanks.
it. Corey, I'm going to go over to you. You've gotten so many covers and so much press. What's the secret? You told me before we were coming that you were going to bring the goods. What's the secret?
So the secret is I have mafia connections. No, I'm just kidding. Okay,
Detroit Mafia, though, right?
Detroit Mafia and New York Mafia too. We know where all the bodies are. No, I'm just joshing you guys. I'm just kidding. So there is obviously the decision to get a front cover story is really driven by the editor and the editor-in-chief. That's going to be his or her ultimate choice. I think from a design standpoint, what I try to do with my staff is we look at every project in every single room from an editorial perspective. Is this front cover worthy? are we framing the furniture in a way that not only fits the functionality of the day-to-day for the client, but is this a great front cover shot? Can we shoot from this direction? It drives my staff crazy that I'll say that's not editorial, that's weak, that's whatever. But the editors are looking for that right angle that looks really good, that's bold, that's audacious, that's off the beaten path. And that is what will often lend that recommendation to them. The photographer and the stylist that you may be collaborating with also have a huge impact on how that angle and that shot will turn out. We do what we call a cover try, where basically we're shooting the house for editorial. We're going to take 1 or 2, possibly 3 spaces and shoot them specifically from the angle of what makes for a good front cover shot. And they'll even put the template of the magazine's verbiage or their logo on the screen over. So that means we may have to move this chair X amount of inches to allow copy to appear in the back of the chair. It may mean positioning the camera in a way to where there's more ceiling, more blank space so that the logo of the magazine can go across the top. It's a complete science. So that's a big part of it. I will say this, though. You want to be good to your editors. Be good to your editors-in-chiefs. Whether you get the front cover or not, you build a relationship. If they're having a speaking engagement or they're supporting some sort of event, go to the event. Meet them, exchange business cards. If you are blessed to get press, send them something. A card, a handwritten note still goes a long way. Flowers, chocolates, things that may sound rather cheesy. These people work so hard and they are endorsing your product. So when you build that relationship, I'm not saying that it gets you into a front cover scenario, but it does enable them to see that you are serious about your craft. And if you give them great material, there's a very good chance you might get it.
And I'm going to interject there. Be good to the assistant editor, because they're going to be a senior editor in about 2 years. They're probably working with 4 other magazines, and you don't get the editor-in-chief relationship right away. It is a kind of a journey for, using an overused word, but it really is. Those assistant editors, those interns, you will be so surprised how quickly they grow up, and over the course of their professional life, you might get not just 1 placement, you might get 10, because if you have that working relationship, if you get it, it's reciprocal, you continue to give good work, they're going to take you with them wherever they go, and they're going to move around from publication to publication, and they're going to come back with you because you're easy to work with, because you've got great photography, because they like you, because you didn't blow them off when they were an assistant editor.
And you sent them chocolates.
And you send them good chocolates.
Send them something.
Just to add to that, I would like to take this moment to publicly apologize to Jane Dagmy for not sending you flowers.
Courtney, bring the mic down for Courtney. Courtney works with a lot of big names, and I want to know, do you need to pitch them anymore, or does all the pitches just come to you now?
That's a good question.
Give me a break. No, yes, of course. One thing, just to kind of tag on to what Corey said, I think too, when you're pitching and, basically going into a project, we always have our designers start focusing on what publication or, what outlet, where do you want to go with this project? And think about that all the time. Think about that when you're designing. Think about the story that you're telling. When we read stories about interiors or profiles, there's always a story to it. Maybe something eventful in the homeowner's life, a new beginning for them, or maybe the home has a history, or maybe the pieces are inspired from travel or whatever. I think that's very important. So to his question, we absolutely pitch. So we do have a couple of clients that get some incoming requests, but a lot of times those aren't creative, or maybe they come at an angle that isn't a fit for where the direction that we're taking the client and their brand. So certainly we pitch. Yes.
Bria, I want to know, how much are you posting on social? Like, what's the rule? Like, how many times are you doing daily, weekly? Do you have rules?
We do have rules. We created our rules by a lot of test driving. So we tried testing out what times of day do we get the most engagement, how much content do we have that makes sense. So for us, right now we have a lot of content. We work with photographers that give us a lot of images. So instead of doing a full day shoot and getting 15 images, if we do a full day shoot, we get about 100 different images. So that gives us a lot of content. So we post twice a day. Normally it's at 8:30 in the morning Central Time and 4:30 in the afternoon Central Time. That's just what happens to work for us. That's the BHI side. Brooke and Lou, we post once a day because we don't have as much content, and our followers are a different type of follower. They're shoppers, so every single post we have is shoppable. So we post once a day, and that's normally in the evenings when people are laying in bed shopping. So it's strategic, and we did a lot of testing. We've changed that. You might see it change again. That's just right now what happens to be working for us.
Yeah. Corey, how about for you?
It depends. It depends upon what I feel like. There are days where I don't feel like posting, and the reason why is because I'm busy. To what Darla mentioned earlier about the point about authenticity, I still do my posts. Now, I have a great assistant, Hannah, that actually takes care of the posting in terms of the effective times of day to engage our readership and our base. I don't have the time to be ding, 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 I got to post because it's 4:30 Eastern. I'm at work. I'm a principal of a firm, and I'm just busy running the enterprise. But the captions, the content, I am 100% engaged in every decision that is made. I'm the editor-in-chief of our social media platform. So I think right now we're posting once a day, but it may be like only 3 times a week. Like, it depends on what's going on. We do a lot of Instagram stories. That's every day. Stories all day long, lots of content on stories. But as far as the feed...
Are you posting that?
I do my own Instagram posts as far as Insta stories. Hannah does it as well, but I'll give her the content. And then the actual feed is, I think our last post was yesterday because we were at High Point Market. The previous post was last Wednesday when I was at the D&D building. So there's a span of time, but my followers kind of like that because it keeps me fresh in their feed.
Can we
I'm
do a
not
story right
inundating
now?
them.
Can we do a post for him right now? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we could. Olivia's right here.
I work with a lot of designers, and it's one of those kind of, they know they need to, they want to retain their voice and point of view. You're busy, how do you plan for this? So there's a tool called Planoly. I'm endorsing it simply because I've used it successfully with a lot of designers. It's free for 30 posts, and I use it with my team too. And it allows us to put those posts in. They can go ahead and put hashtags and all this stuff in. You can move, and there are plenty of tools like this, but it's just one that for designers, we have tried so many, and that has been successful, and because it's so visual. But like you on Sunday nights, the things that you can plan, the things that you can attempt copy to, you go back and you tweak it and make sure, and then you just schedule it really quickly. And that's been a lifesaver for a lot of the designers that have felt like this burden to do it, but then you can just kind of 1 hour, and you've got some steady posts, and then you do your stories in between that are a little more like spontaneous.
Yeah. We manage, I think I actually have 4 different Instagram feeds, and so I have people in the office who will do scheduling. Where's Tyler? Tyler, what's the system we use for scheduling? Buffer? Yeah. So that's one way. So my team will schedule out different posts, and then I will do kind of sporadic because I'm sporadic, and so I will also post. But that way I know we've got consistent content going out on a regular basis, and then I'll kind of spice it up, and I'll be at High Point and I'll add some stories, I'll do a post, I kind of change it up a little bit. Darla, what's a big, you see so many different feeds, what are 1 or 2 things that you see people doing and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing this again, it's just a big mistake that most people are doing, and you're like, if you just tweaked it or just did it a little bit differently?
Bad photos, period. Just even if it's a before or during or whatever, frame it out nice, have some nice lighting, which we spoke to before. And if you have project shots on your feed, now stories are different. And I really like Corey's point about keeping your stories populated. That's important because Instagram really totally rewards you and your reach if you keep your stories populated with something interesting. And they can be kind of ugly because they die in 24 hours. I mean, still keep them pretty, but it's more the nitty gritty. But yeah, just keep the photos pretty. Even if you have to use a nice filter, like a Lightroom filter or one of the filters on Instagram to keep your white balance consistent throughout your feed, just try to frame out the shot so it's really pretty. And if you don't have photography training, you can go to Linda Holt's course on iPhone photography, which she has, lindaholt.com, I think it is. Just get some basic rule of thirds down for your iPhone, take some incredible shots and have some great filters. That would be
just like anything else. The more you do it, the better you'll get.
That would be it. Just don't. I've seen people posting their bowl of oatmeal they had for breakfast, and that's not even framed well. I'm like, what are you thinking?
Oh my God. So on that topic, I have to ask, and I may upset some people in here. I have no idea. I see a lot of designers posting other people's work.
Yes.
On Instagram, like that's a big thing.
Right.
And does that help us with our brand?
It does, and I'll tell you why. Okay, I know it's a very divisive subject. Okay, but especially if you have permission from the designer, right? And I see some people shaking their head. But what is really egregious is when people are posting designers' work and they're not giving them any credit or making the glory about the designer, and that's what's given everybody this nasty taste in their mouth. But inspo posts are, because social media is a community, it's about networking. Inspo posts are revealing exposures for that designer so they can get new followers, new exposure for people who have not seen their work. Plus, it's beautiful content for you to show your aesthetic. But you have to be in the narrative saying, look at Waddell and Bichetti, they are kick-ass designers. I love their work because they did A, B, and C, and there has to be no question about it. And they love it when I share their work. Everybody's inspo post who I've done in this manner has been, thank you so much for sharing my work. Now, obviously, best practices, you should ask permission from the designer. Hey, I love your work. Would it be okay if I shared it on my network? But as long as
How often do you think that's happening?
It should be happening. It's not happening. And so if someone's sharing your work and they're not giving you credit, yeah, I would be pissed off about it. But if they're giving you credit and they're saying how amazing you are, flattery, man. If someone wanted to share my work, I would be like, go ahead, just make sure you tell it's Darla Powell Interiors or Wingnut Social or whatever. I'm more than happy to. That's kind of the game on social to help broaden your reach. And if you don't want to share inspo posts, it's pretty easy. Don't do it.
All right, Corey. I know Corey gets a little passionate about this.
I start to levitate like 2 feet off my seat when that question came up. Okay, so I have very, very strong opinions about this, super strong. And Hannah, our social media coordinator, had mentioned, we should start posting other designers' work and diversifying your feed. I said, I am diverse enough. All right, my work is diverse enough. My clientele needs to see my work. This is the exception I have made when it comes to posting inspirational content of other designers. I only do that for those who are dead. Those who have been icons, like the great Mario Bawada, Billy Baldwin, people who inspire me, I post their rooms because they're dead and they are no longer competitors to me. The worst thing you can do is to post another designer's work and their work is amazing, but then a potential client goes to their page and then hires them. We're all kumbaya. I love you all. We're all friends. But let's keep it crazy real. We are in a competition for business, and at the end of the day, we are all business owners. And I'll be damned if I post a competitor's project on my feed and possibly lose business. But if you're dead on the ground, God bless your journey. Yeah. You have inspired me, and I will post the hell out of your work because you're no longer on board.
Well, so many designers are getting work from their Instagram accounts, and these are high-end designers are getting new clients from people who found them and studied their Instagram accounts. So increasingly, for the people I work with, their feed is a gallery for their work, and stories are for their more personality and everything. But I'm just shocked how many of you have had clients say, I found you on Instagram. I mean, that's pretty look at this. It's a pretty powerful tool.
Oh, me. Sorry.
I just have one more thing to add to that. Okay, obviously if you're in Miami, Florida, like I am not posting Miami designers inspo. I'm not nationally acclaimed, world renowned like Damen Jenkins, so that's a different thing for him to consider. I'm not going to post my competitors' work. That would make no damn sense. So.
I think what to take from it is it depends on where you are in your journey. If you're a newer designer with a new firm and you just don't have content or as much content as you think you need to stay relevant, then maybe you sprinkle it in once in a while. Or maybe you have a group of friends that, you have a pod with in messages, and then you guys can support each other. And we've done where there's been like 4 or 5 national different builders, architects, designers, and we've gone like once a week where we each share each other's work. I mean, we don't do it all the time, but it kind of depends on where you are in your journey. If you are working nationally and you have to think about being competitors with people all over the country, then it would make sense to not share. But maybe a builder or an architect, because then you're giving them exposure and you're putting yourself right in front of them on their feed. So I think it really depends on where you are in the journey.
I'd be really interested in Courtney's, since you're guiding people, how do you guide your clients on social?
We don't necessarily run client social. We have a few clients where we actually do manage their social, but we always say, ideally, you're not posting other people's work. Second, similar to what Corey said, post iconic imagery. Inspiration can come from travel. It can be resorts, public buildings, landmarks, things like that. But then again, there are people that don't have enough work. They just don't. So then in those cases, we always say, make it relevant. Maybe you saw it in a publication and you can tag that outlet and credit the designer, of course. But yes, ideally you're not doing that, because I agree. The designer that I mentioned previously, she was posting, we had a long conversation and she's gone on a pause for a moment, but she was posting work and not properly crediting it. And even our team that handles our social went in and reposted and credited it as her work, and all of a sudden we're like, hold everything. So yeah, you just have to be really, really careful, because it's not fair.
Yeah. I'm gonna close this up, and then we're gonna have questions. So can I get your questions ready for the panel? I had an instance. A friend of mine out of Portland noticed that somebody on House had posted a picture of his work. Now, he had done a show house. They had paid a photographer to come in. Somebody else had walked through the project, taken pictures, and sold those pictures. So he had every right to do that. That can happen. But then this designer out of San Diego posted those pictures that she bought as her projects. So you need to do the reverse search on images every once in a while to make sure nobody's using yours. So it was a mess. Anyways, I just wanted to share that, because that stuff kind of happens out there. And she did not think she had done anything wrong. Believe me, I called her, and so did he. So what questions do you guys have for our panel today?
Stand up and real loud, real loud.
So my question is for Courtney. In terms of, you said when a client comes to you, do you also help them figure out their story? Because, when they get there, if you're like, this story is just not interesting enough for us to sell, right, your brand, do you kind of help them through that process, or do they have to come ready to do that already?
Absolutely. Every opportunity that we have to work with a new designer or team, it's a new opportunity to tell a story. So sometimes we'll have very poised clients that come to us with a strategy, and we love it, and we move forward with it. Other times they have no idea. We'll craft a story and hope that they like it. But, ideally it's a team effort. You touched on this before, but, we love a client that comes with a wish list, this is where I want to be in 2 years, or this is my reason for wanting to work with your team. And from there, then, yes, we can craft a story. It's very competitive. There are a lot of designers. There's a lot of beautiful work happening. So whatever we can do to give someone that niche, maybe your niche, whatever your niche, you have to find it. and we can certainly help with that. I think a lot of times people don't know. Sometimes it's very obvious, sometimes it's not. But you do have to set yourself apart and figure out what that angle is and work it.
All right, well, first off, thanks y'all for being here. Y'all are a wealth of knowledge, and we love it, obviously. So my question to really all of you is in your local market, let's say that your local design publication wants to pick up a project you just did, is that considered published? So if then traditional home sees it, it's done, right? You can't do it again? Tell me about it, Courtney.
I like you. Okay. Yes. If a magazine is published what they call regionally and it's a limited grab, as far as the local area, a national publication like Traditional Home or House Beautiful may run it a second time. They may choose to shoot it a second time on their own, or they may use the existing imagery. Again, caveat. So right now we have a spread in Connecticut Cottages and Gardens, which is a regional publication in Connecticut. A major national publication is considering running it separately. As long as I don't post those images from the magazine, even though it's out on newsstands, it's in the public, on my website or social media, it is still considered regional. So you can still ruin the opportunity if you take the images from the local magazine and put them online. But if it's kept to the small 14, 15, 20,000 readership area and not the millions that are out there in the country, they may run it a second time.
I'll add to that too. There are also, like, we will, get coverage for an entire project, and then we will repitch. Maybe we'll pitch the master bedroom closet, or we'll pitch the bathrooms in the space, or things like that. And additionally, sometimes just having a space rephotographed. So, I mean, we've had projects that are pitched, that are published nationally or regionally. And a lot of times if you have new photography, it's like a clean slate.
That is such a hot tip.
Yeah. I was going to say the best thing is to have a relationship with the editor that you're addressing and be able to have a conversation, because as soon as you can actually have a conversation with an editor, which is not an easy thing to do, but when you can have that conversation, quite frankly, sometimes they're so fired up on a particular designer, they'll take what they can get. They'll be like, well, what if we come at it with this? Or what if we did it this way? And so I think, every project has multiple opportunities for publication.
I've literally interviewed some people that have had projects published 6 and 8 times. You can also think internationally. Nobody has said that. But I have several of the people that have been on our podcast that have been, in London, in Russia, in
I
lots of
love
different
that
places.
exercise. I will wring a project dry of possibility, because that's how an editor thinks also, just like what you were talking about. And in my book, I kind of broke down everybody says they want the whole house published. Sometimes it's smarter and more strategic to say, well, do you have a small space story? Do you have an organizing story? Is there a color story? Is there an indoor-outdoor story? Is there the big kitchens and baths story? And just, you have to decide, what is the purpose of this? But it's a lot harder to just get one project featured. Very few places are going to give you 8 pages.
Yeah, we'll leave rooms out deliberately. If we have 80 images from a project, we send 5 maybe to get, take the pulse of the editorial team. And then if they respond, then we send, 12 and then we go from there. And if they're going to publish, then we will share maybe the entire link. But it's wonderful if you can, save an exterior patio or something along those lines.
One of the challenges that I feel like is coming with a lot of the periodicals, particularly the shelter periodicals, is that if we're interested in the celebrity who owns the house, and so the project may be beautiful, but as I see it, magazines like Elle Decor, Architectural Digest, of course, Traditional Home has always been interested in the person who's in the house. But it becomes a little bit challenging for the designer when the person who owns the house is a private figure. I've worked in DC, and we have lobbyists and people like that who really don't want to be in those publications. Which periodicals should we be looking at today that can feature our projects without featuring the owner?
I can talk to that. read the publications, look at the publication, see what they're covering. I mean, House Beautiful, they don't always mention the homeowner, or then, it really just depends. For the most part, everybody wants the lifestyle story. They want to know exactly who they are, but sometimes they have to settle for, a reference to a southern mansion owned by. So that's, again, a conversation with the editor. You say, I've read your magazine. I see that there's always a homeowner included. However, we have this particular project. The homeowner will not participate. Is there anything we can do? And they almost always make it work.
And there are a lot of periodicals that are publishing just the home, and do not want, because there are people who are not celebrities that really don't want to be in these either. So it really is a matter, and they'll change time from time. They'll get a new editorial staff, change direction. Now we're doing celebrities. Now we're not doing people. So you have to stay current and just understanding what they're putting out there is telling you what they are looking for. I would say, to your point, also don't discount Elle Decor online. Sometimes that's where they start the relationship with a new designer. They're not going to put you straight in the pages, and and that's you're building that relationship. You're giving them confidence in working with you, and over time, then you get consideration for the pages. I would also say don't discount the front of the magazine. These smaller quarter-page little features are the most widely read. They're the easiest to break into. They may not be a whole house publication. It may be an angle. But that's how you seed the relationship. They get confidence in you. Then they may come back to you and say, hey, we're looking for, a bathroom, and we're really having a hard time. So then you have this relationship with you, get them starting to come back with you, but just never discount those. Those are also, hot tip, usually written by assistant editors. So they're a little more jacked up and happy to talk, and but again, those assistant editors are going to grow into that next editorial role, and you will already have that relationship.
Yeah.
And to that point, but freelancers are money. Like, we have such great relationships with freelancers. Even though they're not making the editorial decisions, they have those relationships. They can slide it right up under the nose of the decision maker, and they're very approachable in most cases.
Thanks. And then one tip you want to maybe take into account is in your contracts with your client, putting a clause in your contract that says that I, as your professional designer, reserve the rights, unequivocal, to photograph the results of our work to be used online, on social media, and in print. And then you put the detail that says that per the firm's policy, should the client not like his or her name to be revealed to the press, when we photograph the home, we would take down any photographs of your family out of sight. When we shoot the home, we will not release your name or likeness without written consent in advance of the shoot by the client. Because a lot of times designers don't do the background with the client first. They go straight to the magazine, and then they're like, okay, let's shoot it. And then the client's like, I don't want my work out there. And now you've damaged your relationship with your editor. Yeah. So you want to make sure you've had that conversation with your client, that they initial and document that and sign off on it in the contract process first. And that way you're covered legally with both your client and the magazine or the press outlet.
And so thank you guys so much. Big round of applause for you guys. Thank you.